So, Princess Anne just did something the palace usually never does. She reportedly walked into a private meeting at Buckingham Palace, closed the door behind her, and told Queen Camilla in front of a senior aide that she was no longer welcome in the same room as Prince Louis until further notice. And the reason is honestly more heartbreaking than anyone expected, because we're not talking about a scheduling dispute. We're not talking about a matter of royal protocol or hurt feelings over a seating chart. We're talking about a 7-year-old boy who reportedly cried in the back of a car and then asked, very quietly, whether he could just go home. That's not a family disagreement, that's a line being drawn. And in an institution that measures its emotional temperature in raised eyebrows and slightly cooler press releases, a member of the firm reportedly issuing an in-person removal notice to the consort is close to unprecedented. That's not institutional caution. That's the Princess Royal, at 74 years old, deciding that the protection of the youngest Wales child now outranks the diplomatic maintenance of her sister-in-law's dignity. Before we get into it, if you're new here on Crown Watch, hit subscribe so you don't miss the updates on this one, because the story is still unfolding, aides are reportedly still being briefed, and Kensington Palace has, according to observers, not yet decided how much of this to formally acknowledge. There's a lot more coming. So let's talk about what actually happened here, because the timeline is pretty revealing when you lay it all out. According to those briefed on the sequence of events, the incident began on what was supposed to be an ordinary Tuesday afternoon in early autumn, somewhere between 3 and 4 o'clock, on a short private car journey from a family gathering back toward Kensington Palace. Prince Louis, who turned 7 earlier this year, was reportedly traveling in a small motorcade of 2 vehicles. He was, according to those familiar with the arrangement, seated in the second car alongside a senior royal figure and one member of the household security detail. That figure, according to multiple accounts now circulating, was Queen Camilla. The car reportedly departed at approximately 3:47 in the afternoon. It arrived at Kensington Palace roughly 40 minutes later. And in that 40-minute window, something occurred that has reportedly reshaped the internal dynamics of the firm. For context, the firm is the informal in-house term used to describe the working core of the monarchy, the small group of senior royals who represent the institution in official capacity. When something shifts inside the firm, it doesn't leak the way normal family arguments leak. It moves in whispers, through principal private secretaries, through diary changes, through engagements that were scheduled and quietly rearranged. And here's where it gets interesting, because within 72 hours of that car journey, 3 separate joint appearances that had previously featured Queen Camilla and any of the Wales children were, according to palace observers, quietly restructured, not cancelled, restructured. In palace language, that's the equivalent of a klaxon going off. There is a specific internal disclosure protocol at Kensington Palace and Clarence House, which governs how appearances involving minors are approved by their parents in advance. I know that sounds incredibly boring, but stay with me, because it's actually the key to the whole story. Under that protocol, any adjustment to a joint appearance involving the Wales children requires sign-off from Catherine, Princess of Wales, and William, Prince of Wales, in writing, usually through their private office. 3 adjustments in 72 hours is not a coincidence. That's a decision being made and then executed through the proper channels at speed. According to those familiar with the reaction inside Kensington Palace, Catherine was reportedly informed within an hour of the car's arrival. She had, according to household sources, been waiting at the residence with tea already set. Louis reportedly walked in ahead of the adults, went straight to his mother, and did not speak for several minutes. He then, according to one account that has been circulating among palace observers, asked her a single question about whether he had done something wrong. That moment changed everything inside that household. Now here's where the contradiction starts to emerge between what Queen Camilla was projecting publicly and what was reportedly happening behind closed doors. Because in the days leading up to that car journey, Camilla had been photographed at 3 separate public engagements, an engagement being an official duty carried out on behalf of the monarchy, and in each one she had been framed by royal correspondents as an increasingly central figure in the new generation of royal life. The narrative that had been building, gently and steadily since the coronation in May 2023, was that Camilla had grown into the role of consort, had earned the affection of the younger royals, and had begun to function as a stabilizing grandmotherly figure in the wider family. And honestly, that narrative wasn't entirely without foundation. She had reportedly attended 2 of Louis's school events, She had appeared warm in photographs. She had reportedly written to Charlotte on her birthday, and I understand that instinct too. When an institution is trying to project unity, the easiest story to tell is one of blended family warmth. But here's the thing. According to those briefed on the interior dynamics, that projection had reportedly been maintained across a much more strained reality. Princess Anne, according to household observers, had spent the better part of the last 2 years quietly monitoring the interactions between the consort and the Wales children. She had, insiders describe, asked pointed questions of senior aides about who was accompanying the children on which engagements. She had reportedly requested minor changes to seating at family gatherings. She had, according to those familiar with her office, kept a private notebook of concerns. That's not nothing. That's a senior royal running her own quiet audit. And the third-party ripple here is significant, because it isn't only Louis who has reportedly been affected. According to observers, Princess Charlotte, who is now 10 years old, has for months been described by staff as noticeably more reserved in the presence of the consort. And Prince George, at 12, has reportedly begun to position himself protectively near his younger siblings during larger family occasions. Children read rooms faster than adults credit them for. And when 3 children of the same household begin adjusting their body language around the same adult, that is not a phase, that is a pattern. There is one specific scene that keeps coming back to me, described by those who have heard the account secondhand. It reportedly took place in a small sitting room at Buckingham Palace on the morning after the car journey. Princess Anne, dressed in a dark green tweed she has been photographed in dozens of times over the years, reportedly walked into that room carrying a slim leather folder tucked under her arm. Camilla was already seated by the window. A senior aide stood by the door. Anne, according to the account, did not sit. She placed the folder on the low table between them, closed her hand briefly over the top of it, and told Camilla in indirect terms that a conversation was now overdue and would not wait any longer. Camilla reportedly began to respond, and reportedly did not let her finish. Now here's the thing. In a family that is trained from childhood to swallow disagreement in front of staff, that folder gesture is enormous. A folder placed between 2 women in a room like that is not a prop, it's a message. It means there is a record. It means the conversation is being anchored in something documented, not something emotional. And, according to those who have described that morning, Camilla reportedly understood the meaning of the folder immediately. Her posture changed. Her hands, which had been folded loosely in her lap, moved to the arms of the chair. The breaking point came the following afternoon, in what has been described as a longer, more formal meeting held in a private drawing room on the first floor of Buckingham Palace. According to those briefed on the encounter, the room was set with 3 chairs, rather than the usual pair, indicating that a witness had been requested, likely a senior aide or a member of the household office. The curtains were reportedly half drawn against the late autumn light. There was a small clock on the mantelpiece that observers describe as being the only sound in the room for the first several minutes. Princess Anne reportedly wore a plain navy skirt and a cream blouse. She sat with her back straight, her hands resting on her knees, and she did not lean forward when she spoke. Camilla was reportedly dressed in one of the softer blue ensembles she often wears for informal palace meetings. She sat slightly turned toward the window, which is a body language tell that royal watchers have noted before in moments of pressure. According to the account now circulating among those close to the households, Anne began by asking whether Camilla was aware of what Louis had said when he arrived home. Camilla reportedly answered that she was aware the boy had been upset, but that the matter had been overstated. Anne's voice reportedly rose slightly, then stopped. She reportedly did not raise it again for the rest of the meeting. She then delivered the line that has, according to those familiar with the aftermath, reframed the entire situation inside the family. Louis, she reportedly told Camilla, had asked his mother whether he was the kind of boy the family found difficult to love. That's a pretty remarkable admission from a 7-year-old child. And it is that sentence, more than anything else, that appears to have moved Princess Anne from quiet observation into open action. Camilla reportedly did not respond immediately. According to the account, she covered her face briefly with one hand. She did not retreat. But she did not defend herself either. And Anne, according to those familiar with her posture in the room, did not press. She did not need to. The folder on the table between them contained, insiders describe, a written summary of concerns compiled over the previous 18 months. It was not a legal document, it was not a formal complaint. It was, according to one description, a record. And a record placed on a table between two senior royals in that particular room, with a witness present, carries a weight that no press release could match. The meeting reportedly lasted just under an hour. Camilla left first. Anne reportedly remained in the room for another several minutes, alone, before the aide re-entered and quietly closed the folder. Within days, the ripple began to move outward, and it moved faster than the palace had reportedly anticipated. The first sign appeared in the schedules. A joint engagement that had been listed on the court circular, which is the official daily record of royal engagements published by Buckingham Palace, was quietly amended. A photograph opportunity involving Camilla and one of the younger royals was rescheduled without explanation. Royal correspondents, who read the court circular the way analysts read financial statements, reportedly noticed within 48 hours. British tabloids began circling the story in fragments. One outlet ran a piece questioning whether there had been a rift between the Princess Royal and the consort. Another described what it called an unusually cool atmosphere at a recent family lunch. A third simply printed a photograph of Anne and Camilla standing apart at a public event, with the caption suggesting distance without naming a cause. The mainstream broadsheets were more restrained, describing what they characterized as an internal recalibration of family duties. That is not a scandal. That is a signal, and the public response, once fragments began to leak, split cleanly along generational lines. Older citizens, who remember the Princess Royal as the hardest-working member of the family through the 80s and 90s, reportedly viewed her intervention as long overdue and morally clear. Younger demographics, particularly those who had grown up watching Camilla's careful public rehabilitation over the last 2 decades, viewed the confrontation with more ambivalence. Some described it on social platforms as a protective grandmother figure being unfairly sidelined. Others described it as a moment of overdue accountability. Neither reading is entirely wrong, and the tension between them is part of what has kept the story alive. There was one small human detail buried in the coverage that has reportedly stayed with observers. According to one account describing the afternoon Louis returned to Kensington Palace, the boy had been holding a small folded piece of paper in his hand when he stepped out of the car. It was reportedly a drawing he had made earlier that day, a simple picture of a horse, which he had intended to give to someone during the outing. He had not given it. When his mother knelt down to greet him, he pressed the drawing into her hand instead. Catherine reportedly kept it. And according to those familiar with the household, that folded piece of paper now sits on a shelf in her private study, next to a photograph of her 3 children taken the previous summer. The reframing that has emerged in the days since is, in its own way, the quietest part of the story. The action Princess Anne took was not taken to humiliate the consort. It was taken to protect a child. Those are 2 very different projects. One involves palace politics. The other involves a 7-year-old boy who came home from a car ride and asked his mother whether he was difficult to love. And when the 2 projects came into conflict, Anne reportedly made the choice that the Princess Royal has, in one form or another, been making for 50 years. What this whole situation illuminates is the quiet arithmetic of family inside an institution that is built to survive individuals. Duty can protect a crown, but only a person can protect a child. Silence can preserve appearances, but only honesty can preserve a boy's belief that he is loved. And somewhere between the polished photographs and the carefully edited court circular, a folder was placed on a low table in a quiet room at Buckingham Palace, and a 74-year-old woman decided that the youngest child of the future king would not be asked to carry any more than he already had. The callback that keeps coming back to me is that small folded drawing of a horse, pressed into a mother's hand at the door of Kensington Palace, and a boy who wanted to give it to someone and, for a reason he could not fully explain, decided he could not. Before we wrap up, if you want to stay updated on royal family news as it develops, make sure to subscribe to Crown Watch so you never miss a story. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.